When you think of VivixTales, what are some things that come to mind? JRPGs? Metroidvanias? Who are you and why are you sitting on my couch? All great answers.
No.
Now imagine if all of those answers were wrong, and I was held captive for around 4 hours, with some time to sleep in between captivity. Katapillars forced me to play Little Nightmares 3, a game I had absolutely no intention of playing. While every game deserves to be played, this one deserved to be played by Katapillars.
And Trace, because like I mentioned from a long ago video, he's a weenie when it comes to horror games, so I know this game was going to be perfect.
Felt more like psychological torture, but to each their own. What does matter is that this is backlog worthy. Let's talk about Little Nightmares 3.
Now, I've always been a fan of the Little Nightmares franchise, and they all have their own unique gameplay, and this one for sure has its own unique version, because this is the first Little Nightmares game to introduce co-op for the first time, meaning you can invite a friend to tag along even if they don't have the game, or you could just play couch co-op with someone at home. I will admit, playing with Trace is actually my second playthrough, as I had already played it with someone else.
Now take me, a person who has maybe 3 horror games underneath their belt. While I've never played another game within the Little Nightmares series, Katapillars has and can shed some light on a few key differences between gameplay of 1, 2, and how 3 shakes things up.
Well, first off, you're lame for not playing the other games. Like I said, this is the first time they introduced co-op into their games. Even though their second game was also had 2 people, the other one was more of an NPC you really couldn't control or switch off to. You can still play these games on your own and have one of them just be an NPC helping you. I personally think this game is more fun playing with a friend because you both get to suffer and strategize how you'll get through these certain places.
Despite knowing nothing about this game before I started playing, I can't help but admit that the horror in this game was a lot more fun to experience with a friend. I think that if I were playing this game on my own, I'd either freak out way too much or just not play the game in general.
I did enjoy that this game did include more combat, and both players have their own weapons and their own tasks to do with each weapon.
The own weapons mechanic threw me off a little bit, but I can understand why they did it the way they did. I always had to be prompted by Kat to use my bow because otherwise I would just stand there looking pretty. The way they handled it reminded me of Trine, or at least the parts I remember playing of that series.
The puzzles in this game can sometimes be a little complicated because these games don't really give you hints on what you need to do. So you really have to look around and try to interact with whatever you can find. A lot of the puzzles do include both characters to help, so you can't really just split off and do your own thing. Although sometimes one person does get to do more than the other, so if you're unlucky, you just have to sit there and wait for your time to shine again.
I feel like throughout this playthrough, I had a lot more of the objectives to clear for us. That might be the case, or the fact that it all had to be pointed out to me. Numerous times. It's actually embarrassing how many times I didn't catch on.
I did enjoy that throughout the chapters or the areas that you go through, there would be small references from the other game. In each game, you had to look around for collectibles, and this one isn't any different. Each chapter had a certain amount of collectibles that you had to find and collect. In some of the chapters, the collectibles turn into collectibles from the previous games. Even though none of the previous characters were mentioned nor shown, it's still nice to see that some of the older games had some kind of mention.
I had absolutely no part in this aspect of the game. Playing on the Friends copy, I accidentally found collectibles that I didn't realize mattered. It wasn't until Kat said something along the lines of, "I can't get the achievements," and I stopped looking for them.
I think the only thing I didn't like was that there wasn't many jump scares or a fear factor as the other games. There wasn't many chases or having to murder someone from each chapter. It was more just sneaking and waiting for them to walk out of the room. With that, there was only like one real fight at the end and like 2 real chases. Trace sucked at both of them. He died more than I did.
In my defense, I scare very easily. Everything that happened in this game scared the ever-living life out of me.
Speaking of deaths, I did like how whenever we were just exploring, if one of us died, it didn't kill us both, so we didn't have to both reset. Now, if we were around an actual enemy or doing some small fight and one of us did die, we would have to both reset at the same time. I made a few mistakes and died on my own free will, only because Trace had said something clearly obvious, so I jumped off. Didn't think it was going to reset both of us from the beginning of the area, and it did make us struggle a bit. 3rd time's a charm was our motto. It normally took more than 3 times.
The deaths didn't really bother me, outside of the ones that my PS5 controller directly contributed to. I didn't care for the fact that there was fall damage in this game, unfortunately. while I understand why it's present, I would have loved to jump off the high places like I tried too many times in this game without dying. The story of Little Nightmares 3 isn't really laid out in that simple storytelling way that I'm used to. Between inferring, guessing, and reading some Reddit posts, the character I played as, Lo, has gone through some trauma and has been committed to an institution. Due to this, Lo creates a loan to help manage what he's going through while institutionalized. With her help, Lo and Alone traverse through the different areas of the institution that Lo made up to help understand and cope with the reason they are there.
There are about 4 different areas that you can go around while playing the game. When you start off, you're in a desert area. You keep walking into a tall ladder, where Trace clearly didn't know how to climb, and at the top you enter an area that you end up in a town.
In my defense, there shouldn't really be fall damage in this game. Especially if it's a platformer with, platforming.
Anyways, the people who have lived here seem like they're all stoned out. Not stoned out, but made out of stone. The only living thing are crows. As you keep exploring, you end up coming across a huge baby that looks like those creepy porcelain dolls, but it looks like it's been through hell, as its hair is ripped out and its face is all beaten. At this point, the baby doll peeks through and shines a bright light through one of its eyes, and if you're caught, you get turned into stone just like the people around. The only other enemy in this area are flying bugs, which I assume were beetles, and I will admit we did struggle trying to fight them off because Trace didn't know how to aim.
Crazy to just throw me under the bus like that. My controller wasn't working and auto-aim decided when it wanted to become automatic. This part of the world made me pretty mad, purely for the fact that I had to shoot the bugs at least 5 different times before we got through that level.
You don't really need to do any other fights or combat in this area other than run away from the huge doll. Right before the doll gets to you, the crows distract it, causing it to walk away, and at the end you find a mirror where you go across to the next area. In this second chapter, you enter an area that looks like a candy factory. You found a lot of round balls that could be bubblegum and lollipops, which have some pink purplish goo. As you walk around, you find some really fat people, no offense. Sorry. That looks like the people from the first game that get on the boat to eat. But these people don't really care about your existence or even know you're running around the factory. The only person that cares is this old lady with many arms that kind of looks like she's gliding on the floor. You first fully meet her in her office, but you have to sneak because if she spots you, you just get snatched up. And Trace didn't know that.
No one explained to me how this game worked, and I don't think there was a tutorial. If there was one, I probably skipped it or ignored it. The design of both this aspect of the world, along with the old lady monster thing, was kinda unsettling. This gave me some Abe's Odyssey vibes, especially with the grinding people to make product vibe. I think that the developers did a good job in this section, making it quite nerve-wracking.
We now have to go through the factory and try to find another mirror to get to wherever we're heading to, while avoiding this spider-like lady. We spend most of our time strategizing things and doing crazy parkour to get through places. We eventually shut off the security cameras, which freaks out the spider lady, and when we find her in our office, she fully gets out of that skirt and is just an actual spider? Sorry, arachnids. Is that what they're called? When they're like scared of spiders? I assume. As we are trying to escape, she does chase us down several hallways as we're running around the factory. We lead her to the machine that just turns on and starts to just squish her. I mean, that's normally what most people do with spiders. We then find another mirror and go through it again, off to the next area. Chapter 3 was probably the longest chapter because it's split into 2 parts, sort of.
Chapter 3 took us the longest amount of time because we recently learned that we were terrible at video games while creating videos on said video games. This probably had the most pain, terror, and screams of anguish heard throughout any chapter of Little Nightmares 3.
In this area, we're in a manor house. It's just weirdly dark. While going around, we find a lot of toys and other weird dolls, kind of like hand puppets. Or just puppets. When we finally shine the light, we hear some glass break, only to find that some of the puppets had escaped their cases and are now on the loose. Uh-oh. We then enter a room where we are ambushed by some of these dolls, and even though it was a fight where Trace had to shoot and I had to do the final kill, I think we did better than when we fought the bugs.
I was finally able to understand when to use my bow without the very subtle, loud coughing that Kat would do every time I would forget. Even with my immediate knowledge of the game and mechanics, trying to use the automatic aim felt less than automatic at times.
Once we finished the fight, we were all of a sudden in a carnival. The fat workers that were at the candy factory are now attending this carnival, and the puppets that we were once fighting are now running the carnival. No one really comes after you as you're wandering around the carnival other than these weird dolls. Before fully escaping the carnival, you have to sneak past a bunch of passed out dolls, and if you walk or run, they will all gang up on you. Trace again didn't take the hint, so in confidence, he says, "This game is easy," and proceeds to get jumped.
I cannot help that I have this amazing habit of saying something and then having it disproven in mere moments. It's honestly heinous how often I did not catch on to pretty much anything mechanic-wise going on within Little Nightmares 3.
In the second half of this chapter, you enter another building and find the next mirror, only for it to be smashed, making Lo, the character Trace was, feeling like there was no other way out and feeling hopeless. Throwing the piece of paper that he would look each time we went to the mirror, we kept exploring and came across a tall man sleeping on a couch, and on his hand was a small puppet that acted like some kind of crazy animal.
Almost positive that little animal is something we can call a human. It was pretty humanoid if you ask me.
While trying to escape them, they end up capturing us, and of course, I'm the one who has to save Trace. Well, really, whoever is played alone, the other character. While trying to fully escape, we have to grab a key that they fully left out in the open. We struggle with this part a lot because we had Mission Impossible our way to grab the key, and sometimes we miss or press the wrong button and fall.
It was honestly a big struggle. This part of the game made me finally understand what Kat must have felt like watching me make a fatal mistake every other minute.
When we finally grabbed the key, it was now another chase, and even though we failed a few times, this is the one and only part that would glitch out. Sometimes the tall man wouldn't be chasing us and we'd be able to go through it without freaking out, but Trace would somehow still die. I did experience this glitch on my first playthrough, and I'm sure if you played it yourself and died on this final chase, you probably experienced it too. To finally escape, we had to enter a hot air balloon and float off to our final area.
I felt genuine fear every time we had to restart this godforsaken section. I've never been one to be happily chased, a sentiment I hope other people would share. Whether in real life or in a video game, it honestly affected me to the point I had to take a minute to collect myself, and probably say another stupid line that may have backfired seconds later. Who knows?
In this last chapter, we got struck by lightning and crashed on the shore, with a building that looks like it's been overrun by Mother Nature. We come across a long arm, and Alone finds a gong and bangs it with her wrench, which causes the arm to move, and as you can see, it was really long. We keep exploring only to find and pull open a door, which throws out some papers and a doll that looks just like Alone.
I think it's right here where I felt my psychology background really helped me, along with a Google search later. I was able to put some pieces together and explain to Kat in limited detail that everything is not what it seems. And I got a very loud groan from her.
Throughout the game, we do get small flashbacks of Lo in this exact room, which each flashback shows him hiding something from whoever is going to go see him in this room. When Lo sees the Alone doll and picks it up, he illuminates the room to make it look nice and clean as if it wasn't run down and like new. One of you now has to carry around the doll in order to go through certain areas of the building.
Kat thankfully was able to handle this one, because if I did, I don't think we would have beaten this game. I would not have picked up on any cues, no matter how obvious some may be.
We finally see more parts of the long-armed guy who also has long legs. We now get into another chase with this long-armed guy as he chases us down the hallway. Eventually we finally find a mirror, and before going through, Alone hesitates to go through as each time we've gone through the mirror, Alone takes a while to pass through and always breaks the mirror after each passing. Because we didn't go through the mirror, the big, I guess is a doctor of the place, grabs the mirror, and now we have our final and only boss fight. Most of it is just dodging and waiting, but once you finally kill him, you both fall and are obviously hurt.
I think this part of the game took us a minimum of 7 tries. It got to a point where Kat was yelling at me like a coach to tell me what I was doing.
We shuffle ourselves to the mirror that somehow survived the whole battle. And one final time, Lo wants to go through, but Alone refuses, but after some thinking, she decides to go through, but is then spit out from the mirror and is left alone. I wrote right here on the script, it says teehee alone in big capital letters. where she is then turned to dust and is left with the map Lo had, which shows a drawing of a house with both of them happy to be home.
After the credits, they hit you with post-credits of Lo looking at a broken mirror, trying to fix it and get back to Alone, and that's where the story fully ends.
There are only two main characters in the game, that being the two main protagonists. The first one being Lo, a male who wears a white bird-looking mask. He has some old raggedy clothes and a blue cape. He also has what I believe could be a friendship bracelet around his ankle. He doesn't really wear shoes, so he constantly has his dogs out throughout the whole ride. Now, he doesn't really talk. Only time you hear him talk is when he falls before dying. Thanks to Trace, many deaths, we were able to hear it constantly.
I thought Lo was a pretty cool character, at least through his design. The plague mask was really cool, and whether I vocalized it or not to Kat, I just assumed I was the violence devil from Chainsaw Man, albeit a little cheapy version or something. Lo also had my hair, which is something I thought was cool. Lo uses a bow, which would be really cool if that kid knew how to aim in the slightest.
I played as the other character, named Alone. It's hard to tell, but according to others, Alone is a girl. I honestly thought it was going to be a boy, till later I can kind of see her being a girl. She wears a green jumpsuit and a leather hat or helmet with her orange hair sticking out like pigtails. All of her face is completely covered with the hat covering her forehead, and then wears big goggles covering her eyes. She holds the weapons of which is her wrench on her back. She also has her dogs out. So everyone's just giving out free feet pics to everyone. Just like Lo, Alone does not speak and only yells as she falls to her death. Alone seems like a really good support to Lo. When in the third world, the mirror is broken in order for us to go to the third world. This upsets Lo, and Alone is there to be by his side and reassure him that it'll be okay, even picking up the paper that he had dropped and carried the rest of the way for them. We do learn that she really is just a doll made into a real person in Lo's imagination. In other words, Lo's got no friends. He's like me for real. At the end, it's hard to tell what both their personalities are since they don't speak at all, and there isn't that many cutscenes to see how they fully are overall. The only other characters are enemies that you come across the game. The first enemy being the monster baby. It's a giant humanoid baby doll which looks like it can be made out of porcelain but is very beat up with one eye closed and the other wide open. Her hair is ripped with little bits peeking out over her head. Just like most babies, it's very curious and likes to grab objects that it really shouldn't be grabbing. There's one eye that's wide open and has the power to shine light and can turn anything to stone if you're exposed long enough.
The next one is the supervisor. She's the one that oversees everything in the candy factory. She's an older looking lady with 6 different arms like a spider. She has a constant grin on her face and a big updo hairstyle. She wears a long blue dress, but her body ends at her waist, making her bottom half fake. With all the encounters you get with her, she's just constantly mad, even with her big smile. She screams loudly anytime she saw us and would just snatch you up.
The next antagonist is named the Kin, or the man in the purple suit, along with Minikin, which is a hand puppet held by the Kin. The Kin is a tall humanoid with a oddly shaped large head. As his other name says, he wears a purple suit that looks a bit oversized, and a little red bow. On his right hand is the Minikin, which is a smaller version of the Kin, but has a more dummy-like appearance. The Kin is actually pretty calming and collective, unlike the Minikin, who is more hostile and attacks anyone he spots. The Kin kind of just slowly walks at us and stares, while Minikin does most of the hard work.
The last enemy is the hypnotist. He is a giant being with a snake body. He has long limbs that stretch throughout the building. He has an old man looking face, but his face looks like it could be sagging or droopy. His eyes are white with no pupils, yet he still wears glasses. His fingers are almost sausage-like. Just like our main characters, he himself likes to have the dog's house for us to enjoy. It's clear that the hypnotist is using his hands to feel around and look around the areas. This could be why we go after his hands first when doing the final fight. Just like every other antagonist we've encountered in this game, he's very aggressive and tries to squish us anytime he can.
I think it took about 5 years for this third game to finally be released. It was delayed a few times due to the developers wanting to make this game better along with the graphics. They added a lot of amazing details, both in the background and the foreground. Just like the other games, there are random items you're able to carry or hold just for fun.
I can't say too much when it comes to the development of this game, only because it wasn't one of the games on my usual radar. Outside of that, I thought the graphics were quite nice, and I felt it really added to the ambiance of the game.
I do agree. I did enjoy the ambience in the game as well. I've always enjoyed music from the Little Nightmares games, and this game isn't any different. I was listening to the music most of the time while even writing the script.
Little Nightmares 3 is a game hailing from the horror genre, one that I rarely play, if at all. Thanks to Kat, I was able to take part of a game I don't think I would have played otherwise. Coming from someone who doesn't play these games usually, I think if you're even at all curious about what the genre of the series could offer, this could be a good one to set your sights on.
I really did enjoy the game overall, and I loved that it included the co-op aspect, which made it more fun getting to experience it with a friend. Although the Little Nightmare games are supposed to be a horror game, I didn't really find them very scary. It's a bit thrilling, but never scary. Can't say the same about Trace, since he's too much of a scaredy cat with these type of games. But he shockingly wasn't that scared playing this one, unless he was getting chased.